Whether you're a die-hard professional wrestling fan or a newcomer to the scene, odds are you have heard the name Eddie Guerrero. This November 13th, it'll mark 20 years since the tragic passing of one of wrestling's all-time great figures. Not only did he have a huge effect on the wrestling business, but for me personally, he was a large proponent as to why I became a fan of professional wrestling. I can remember watching his legendary feud with Rey Mysterio over the summer of 2005 that always gets a little bit made fun of the custody of Dominic ladder match, but regardless, it was still a staple of my childhood and my fandom of professional wrestling. See, the thing about Eddie Guerrero was that he was able to do it all. He was great on the microphone, had charisma, his in-ring work was compared to no one. This guy could light up a room with his smile and his whole gimmick of Latino heat, being able to cheat to win, but essentially stealing the hearts of all the members of the audiences. People gravitated towards Eddie Guerrero. He was one of a kind, and truly a generational talent. He wrestled across ECW, WCW, and WWE, and throughout his entire career, he created a legacy that many people are still inspired from. And yes, Eddie Guerrero had his own personal demons that he had fought during his life, but towards the end, he seemed to have reconciled a lot of those issues and managed to turn his life around for the better. In 2004, when he had won the WWE Championship, it became a moment to celebrate, as it was one of the great feel-good moments in pro wrestling history. One of the last feuds that Eddie Guerrero had in the WWE was against his longtime friend slash rival, Rey Mysterio, that culminated in a steel cage match on the very first episode of Friday Night SmackDown. And so the lead up to Survivor Series, the Fall Classic, he would qualify for the Team SmackDown in the Survivor Series elimination matchup. Unfortunately, that would be the last time we would see Eddie Guerrero live on television, because on November 13th, 2005, he would be found deceased in his hotel room in Minnesota. Now, there are some conflicting reports saying that whether or not he was supposed to win the World Championship soon after that Survivor Series, it is still something that's discussed to this point as to what would have happened if Eddie Guerrero had not passed away. So in today's video, we're going to jump into an alternate timeline to see what it would have been like had Eddie Guerrero wrestled in the year 2006. But before we do so, make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe to the channel for more professional wrestling content here on YouTube. And with that being said, let's jump into the video. So on the November 11th, 2005 edition of SmackDown, this is where Eddie Guerrero would face off against Mr. Kennedy to qualify for the Team SmackDown in the Survivor Series matchup that was going to be against Team Raw. I wouldn't change anything about this matchup. Eddie Guerrero goes over by cheating. Mr. Kennedy lays him out with a chair, and we see the whole smile of Eddie Guerrero that he got to cheat to win this matchup. Essentially, keep it the way it was. I would not change this for anything. And as we build towards the Survivor Series event, again, I would keep it very similar to what it originally had. A lot of Team Raw and Team SmackDown evading other shows, standoffs, the typical brand warfare type of an issue. But I would add the included wrinkle that Eddie Guerrero is being criticized by the members of Team Raw for cheating to earn his spot on the team, questioning the validity of his inclusion in the matchup. And Eddie Guerrero wants to assure everybody that this is the new Eddie. It's not the same Eddie that they've known for the last year. That this is a new Eddie, and he's changed his ways. And yes, he did cheat to win, but I mean, come on, old habits die hard. So now that Eddie Guerrero is a part of Team SmackDown, the lineup reads as this. We have Batista, the leader, Rey Mysterio, Eddie Guerrero, Randy Orton, and JBL. And immediately upon first glance on this team, Eddie Guerrero has a history with a lot of the individuals here. He had a huge rivalry with JBL in 2004 over the WWE title. He just spent the majority of 2005 feuding with Rey Mysterio, and of course Batista and him had a match for the world title at the No Mercy pay-per-view event a month prior. And Randy Orton, being the big heel on the team, of course JBL is a heel as well. But Randy's trying to get in the head of Eddie Guerrero, trying to convince him like, hey, this isn't real, right? This whole new Eddie Guerrero bit, like, I'm not buying it. But Eddie says, no, this is real. I am a new version of myself. He understands the whole year-long feud he had with Rey Mysterio, but his main concern was beating Rey. And now that he finally beat Rey, everything's all good. He says he's moved past it. He finally got to accomplish what he couldn't, and that's beating Rey Mysterio. But still, everybody is still very hesitant. They look at Eddie kind of sideways, like, can we really trust him? Was this the right call? And they defer to Batista. And they look at Batista and say, are you okay with this? You're the leader of the Team SmackDown here. And Batista says, hey, I've wrestled him last month. I've been with him the last couple of months. Let's hear him out. So we finally get to the Survivor Series event. And Team Raw, I'm keeping exactly the same. I wouldn't change anything about it. We have Chris Masters, Carlito, Kane, The Big Show, and Shawn Michaels as the team captain. But we finally get to the matchup here at Survivor Series in Detroit, Michigan. And early on, we see Eddie Guerrero breaking up pinfalls, trying to help his keep stay in the match. These guys keep getting pin attempts, but Eddie Guerrero is disrupting them, trying to earn that trust and demonstrate, hey, you guys can trust me, I'm a part of the team. But the team captain Batista gets caught early on by a choke slam by the Big Show, and he's eliminated early in the matchup. He's the first one eliminated. So now Eddie Guerrero has to go about this matchup without the one guy that really trusted him, and that's Batista. And now he has to go about it as almost like the de facto leader, essentially. As the action goes on, Big Show gets eliminated by Ray, very similar to how he was in the actual match. Carlito is eliminated by JBL. SmackDown beginning to build up some momentum here after losing their champion. Chris Masters is eliminated by Eddie Guerrero. Kane is eliminated by JBL. Right now, it's 4-on-1 in favor of SmackDown. They're feeling pretty good about themselves. Eddie Guerrero is now earning the trust of his partners. I mean, I think Ray is still very hesitant to work with Eddie, but JBL and Randy, they're feeling good about it. And little by little, Shawn Michaels, who's the last remaining member of Team Raw, begins to develop this level of momentum. He's starting to come back. He eliminates Rey Mysterio. He takes out JBL. And then finally, it's down to 2-on-1. It's Eddie and Randy Orton versus Shawn Michaels. And Eddie Guerrero and Shawn are in the ring. They share the ring for the first time ever. And it's this huge moment. The crowd is on their feet. They can't wait to see this happen. Eddie and Shawn, they have this exchange over the course of this matchup. Randy tries to get involved because it's Randy. He has this ego about him. Eddie tries to shoo him off, says, no, I got this. And upon that distraction, Shawn lays him out with a sweet chin music, and he eliminates Eddie Guerrero. And then finally, the one-on-one affair between Randy and Shawn. Again, I keep it simple. I keep it similar to how it was during the actual matchup in 05. Randy pins Shawn Michaels, and Team SmackDown goes over. Randy taking the credit here, but Eddie Guerrero doing a lot of the heavy lifting when it came to wrestling Shawn towards the end, as well as helping lead Team SmackDown without Batista. And to close out this show, The Undertaker does make his return, as he did with Randy Orton, and they continue their feud to the Armageddon event. So following the Survivor Series event, Eddie Guerrero is beginning to earn a lot of the trust of the SmackDown locker room. They see the way he performed at the matchup, and it's now developing a now babyface approach, like how he was about a year prior. Batista and him are on the same page. Batista thanks him, hey, I saw what you did at the Survivor Series. You were able to step up and try and get us the win, and you did. Essentially, we did get the win, but Randy was the guy that took the pin. Eddie Guerrero and Batista start teaming up as they have a championship matchup against Eminem, very similar to how Ray and Batista did, but Eddie and Batista win the tag titles, and we build towards Armageddon, where we do see the SmackDown versus Raw matchup. It's Kane and the Big Show versus Eddie and Batista. Again, I'm going to keep it simple here in the early stages of the fantasy booking, and once we hit the Royal Rumble, you're going to start to see a little bit of change in terms of the timeline. But Kane and the Big Show have the upper hand, obviously due to size, due to experience, and of course chemistry that Eddie Guerrero and Batista really lack here in these early matches that they have. But they win the tag titles. They have the matchup at Armageddon. And as a way for Eddie to really, again, hone in on earning trust, he doesn't want to be known as the guy that lie, cheats, and steal all the time. He wants to be this great babyface that everybody here can love, respect, and trust. So late in the matchup, Eddie and Batista have the momentum on their side, but Kane goes for one of those flying clotheslines on Batista. Eddie pushes him out of the way, eats the clothesline, and that allows the Big Show to chokeslam Batista through the announce table like he did a couple weeks prior. Eddie, being the legal man, takes a double chokeslam from Kane and the Big Show. He eats the pin. Team SmackDown loses. Kane and the Big Show go over. But again, no harm, no foul. Batista sees what Eddie had done, sacrificing himself for his partner in the moment. Although it led to a loss anyway, he still appreciates the gesture, and we keep moving forward. We get to the December 30th episode of SmackDown, where Eminem is going to challenge Team Eddie Guerrero and Batista for those tag titles, and they win. They win the tag titles back by a returning Mark Henry, who attacks Batista and Eddie, giving Eminem the victory. They had a short title reign, again, not unlike Rey Mysterio and Batista in real life. But the following week, we have a steel cage match for the tag titles, because the main issue here is to not have any interference. But yet again, Mark Henry comes through, interferes, and costs Batista and Eddie the tag title matchup. Eminem go over. Now, this is the part of the story where Batista does suffer this injury at a live show, but they chalk it up to kayfabe as Mark Henry being the guy to injure him, and Batista is now out for several months, again like how he was in real life. So Batista is forced to vacate this championship. There is no more World Heavyweight Champion, but now they have a battle royal announced to declare a winner and a new champion for the World Heavyweight title. You may remember that this is when Kurt Angle had won in the actual timeline, but in this timeline, there was no need for Kurt Angle to jump over from Raw to SmackDown, as we'll keep moving without him in this timeline. It's the January 13th edition of SmackDown where we have the Battle Royal. Batista relinquishes the title, and instead of Kurt Angle winning the Battle Royal, I'm going to have Eddie Guerrero win this Battle Royal. He last eliminates Mark Henry and becomes a world champion yet again, but this time he wants to do it the right way. He wants to honor his friend and his partner Batista, carrying the mantle where he left off. He says, hey, I know Dave is the world champion. Unfortunately, due to injury, he will not be active. I want to be able to hold this title with the very same respect and honor that Dave would have done as well. The stage is set for the Royal Rumble event in Miami, Florida. Eddie Guerrero versus Mark Henry for the World Championship. And in a promo battle here, Henry tells Eddie Guerrero that he cheated, that he waited for Dave Batista to get injured to swoop in and win that world champion, that he's a paper champion. But Eddie tells him, like, hey, Dave is not here to defend the title nor defend himself, and I wish that he was, but because he's not, I plan on doing this the Dave way. I want to be an honorable champion that will fight any and every comer that steps in my way, essentially. Eddie Guerrero goes as far as to promise that if he is the world champion, by the time that Dave Batista returns from his injury, he will give him a world championship title match like he did for Eddie at No Mercy 2005. He also promises to beat Mark Henry in an honorable way. He does not want to be known as the cheater anymore. He wants to be that honorable champion. That's the key word in this whole story, is honor, respect. Eddie Guerrero not wanting to cheat in this matchup. We get to the Royal Rumble match, right? And Eddie Guerrero obviously has a size disadvantage against Mark Henry. His best bet is probably to go for a frog splash, but throughout the match, his pride, that Latino heat in him, wants to hit the Three Amigos. He wants to prove that I can do it, that it doesn't matter how big or small someone is, that they can accomplish their goals. And Eddie Guerrero throughout the match is trying to hit Three Amigos, and he just can't. Right? Mark Henry's too big. So throughout the match, we see sprinkles of him slowly lifting him up. Nothing still works, and Mark Henry laughs this off during the matchup, continuing to call him small, belittling him, just powering through the entire matchup until finally Eddie Guerrero starts to outsmart Mark Henry. He uses his size and his strength to his advantage against Mark Henry. So he hits a couple of frog splashes on him, but Mark Henry is still kicking out. Until finally, at the end of the match, Eddie Guerrero tries to go for that Three Amigos one last time, but rather than actually going for it, he sneaks in a small package and swoops in Mark Henry for a pinning combination and essentially steals the victory, but not really without stealing it like how he would. He ekes out that victory, wins it 1-2-3, and defeats Mark Henry cleanly in the middle of the ring. In the actual pay-per-view event, the main event was Kurt Angle versus Mark Henry for the world title, but we fast forward here to this timeline. It actually is going to be the Royal Rumble match that's going to main event the show. And I have the same, again, a similar format to what it was originally, except the final two participants are going to be Randy Orton from SmackDown and Shawn Michaels from Raw. Keep that in mind. This is now a rematch of what happened at Survivor Series. These two are familiar with one another. Randy gets the pin on Shawn at the Survivor Series to earn a victory for Team SmackDown, but for the Royal Rumble match, Shawn Michaels eliminates Randy and wins the Rumble and is the second person to win 3 Royal Rumble matches following Stone Cold Steve Austin. Just an important note here to tell you where we're at in the road to WrestleMania. So now that the Royal Rumble event is in the rearview mirror and we're building towards the No Way Out pay-per-view, it's going to be February 19th of 2006, and Randy Orton is very upset that he lost the Royal Rumble matchup. He claims that Shawn Michaels doesn't deserve to have this matchup at WrestleMania, that he had his time and it's gone, but that Randy demands that Eddie Guerrero comes out because he has a few things that he needs to tell him. So Eddie Guerrero comes out to the ring, speaks with Randy Orton, and Eddie is again very calm, cool, collected. He beat Mark Henry. He did what he said he was going to do, and the crowd is firmly behind Eddie Guerrero. But Randy Orton claims that at the Survivor Series, I got the victory. You didn't. You lost. At Royal Rumble, you cheated to win the Rumble. You had to resort to a roll-up, to a sneaky tactic. You couldn't really win it on your own. You had to trick Mark Henry to win that matchup. He calls into question Eddie's integrity, and he wonders what Dave Batista would think of him as a world champion. That you're not a real world champion like Batista or like I was, because Randy was a former world champion as well. And Eddie Guerrero is sick of it. He's tired of hearing all of this noise from Randy Orton. He says, "You want a match against me? That's no problem. At No Way Out, I'm going to shut you up for good, and we're never going to have to hear another word from Randy Orton again." Randy, of course, accepts, being that he goaded Eddie Guerrero into a matchup at No Way Out, and we had set up Eddie versus Randy Orton at No Way Out. It's a very toughly contested matchup between Randy and Eddie. Up until this point in his title reign, this is going to be his toughest matchup. Randy takes him to his limit. RKOs out of nowhere, and Eddie having to kick out and really dig deep in. I feel like it's a callback to 2 years prior when he had his No Way Out matchup against Brock Lesnar, because Brock really pushed Eddie to his limits then. And then Eddie, of course, he's going to get the victory over Randy Orton, because that's the point of the story, where Eddie is really solidifying himself as this new Guerrero. He beats Randy clean as a whistle, 3 amigos into the frog splash. It takes him a couple frog splashes to beat Randy, but he does get the victory, and he is now the world champion leading into WrestleMania 22 that will be taking place in Chicago, Illinois, April 2nd, 2006. Just a reminder where we are in the timeline. So on the February 24th edition of SmackDown following No Way Out, Eddie Guerrero comes out and he says that he poured his heart and soul into that match against Randy, that he feels fulfilled. He no longer feels like he needs to prove himself as a wrestler nor as a man. He talks about the first time that he was the WWE champion a couple of years prior, and he said that he wasn't ready at that time. He succumbed to the pressure of being the main guy on SmackDown, but now he is ready, and now he's willing to take on any challenger that comes his way. And just like that, Shawn Michaels comes out to the ring. Shawn Michaels, the winner of the Royal Rumble match a month prior, comes out and congratulates Eddie Guerrero and says, "I've kept my eye on you for quite some time." And then finally, being able to get in the ring with you at the Survivor Series, I learned that we have a lot of similarities, both in and out of the ring. Shawn acknowledges that yes, they even had their own personal battles within and out of the wrestling ring, but that he and Eddie Guerrero left the WWE and came back only to be the better versions of themselves. And he sees a lot of himself in Eddie Guerrero. He admires that underdog fire that Eddie Guerrero possesses, and he wants to have this matchup at WrestleMania 22. He chooses Eddie Guerrero as his opponent for WrestleMania. And he does so by saying that you've won title after title. You've had classic matches with several Hall of Fame worthy opponents, but you've never danced with the showstopper at the show of shows. And Eddie Guerrero accepts WrestleMania 22. Eddie Guerrero versus Shawn Michaels, the big dream match that we've never seen, the matchup that I would mark as my #1 dream match of all time, will be happening at WrestleMania. So they bring back Saturday night's main event. It's going to be a tag team match between the two main events of WrestleMania, Triple H and John Cena on one side against Shawn Michaels and Eddie Guerrero on the other. And on the build-up to the Saturday night's main event, Shawn Michaels doesn't know if he can trust Eddie Guerrero. He still sees those little hints of the old Eddie, and he doesn't want to let his guard down. So he talks with one of the guys that knows Eddie the very best, and that's Chris Benoit. And Benoit says, "I've been up the road with Eddie Guerrero. I've driven so many towns across the country, across the world with Eddie Guerrero, and he would like to think that there's nobody that knows him better than himself." And Benoit says that Eddie is his most dangerous when his back against the wall and he is the underdog. So he says, don't let your guard down when it comes to Eddie Guerrero. And Shawn Michaels is left pondering this as we cut to another segment on the show. We get to the event itself, and Eddie Guerrero assures Shawn Michaels, "Hey, I got your back. You don't have to worry about it. This is just a formality. It's just to prove that we are the better main event than Cena and Triple H." And Shawn says, "I know. I trust you." And they get to the matchup. Eddie and Shawn win. They beat Triple H and John Cena. But after the match, Shawn Michaels lays out Eddie Guerrero with a sweet chin music as the crowd is stunned that, they kind of hint a Shawn heel turn, but it's not necessarily a heel turn. It's more of just Shawn doing his due diligence and laying out Eddie Guerrero. About a week later on Monday Night Raw, Triple H and Shawn Michaels have a matchup against each other, and Eddie Guerrero cost Shawn Michaels the matchup as a form of retaliation for what he did to him at Saturday night's main event. We have a contract signing on an episode of SmackDown where Shawn and Eddie are finally get to confront each other about what really happened during that super kick, and Shawn says he doesn't call Eddie Guerrero's integrity into question. In fact, he's impressed with his latest line of work. He saw him at the Survivor Series, he saw him at the Royal Rumble and No Way Out, which is why he chose Eddie as his WrestleMania opponent. The only thing is he had super kicked Eddie because he didn't know if he could trust him entirely, and he wanted to beat him to the punch, essentially super kicking Eddie Guerrero before he could even try anything on himself. So he says that it wasn't personal by any means, that he was going to beat Eddie to the punch. Eddie Guerrero responds by saying, I understand. I understand that, Sean. But since winning this world championship, I have tried so hard to prove to everybody, to prove to myself that I am worthy of being this world champion, this new world champion, only to be misunderstood and judged along the way. And make no mistake about it, Sean, I respect you. I admire everything you've done in this business and for this business. But I've gone so many years in my career being called the Latin HBK, the Latino version of Shawn Michaels. At WrestleMania, I proved to not only you, but to the entire world that you are the copy of me. And he says that he wants this matchup more than anything. He wants Shawn Michaels to bring his best. He assures Shawn that you are going to get a version of Eddie Guerrero that has nothing left to lose. I have done everything in my career up to this point in the way that I wanted. So at WrestleMania, you make sure that you bring your A game, because you can rest assured I'll be bringing mine. And whoever wins this matchup at WrestleMania 22 will take one step closer to immortality, one step closer to being called the greatest of all time. And that's what this matchup is going to come down to. Who is going to lay claim to being one step closer to being the GOAT? I also want to include in this promo that I feel like Eddie Guerrero would say something along the lines to Shawn Michaels, like, hey, you need this matchup more than I do. The time that you have left is a lot more limited than I have in my career. You need this matchup more than me. I'm the world champion. I have nothing to prove to you. I have nothing to prove to them because they know who I am. And at WrestleMania, you're going to find out just that. We get to WrestleMania 22. It's a grand spectacle, Shawn versus Eddie. We start the matchup with Eddie Guerrero offering a handshake. He genuinely just wants to prove who is the best, but Shawn again will not let his guard down. He slaps Eddie Guerrero, and Eddie Guerrero is left just smiling. Like, really, after all this time, we're still going to go that route. He laughs it off and immediately delivers rabid punches to Shawn Michaels. Him and Shawn have this full brawl to start off the matchup. You would usually see a technical matchup between these two, but I wanted to include that this matchup was built on respect, but has slowly steered towards the way of tension and a lot of drama between two of the very best. And again, Eddie Guerrero, having that Latino heat in him, he tries to not get disqualified because he realizes that all these rapid punches and the way he's just attacking Shawn, he doesn't want to disqualify. So he stops, he lets up, and allows Shawn to kind of regain a little bit of his composure. Eddie backs off, both of them rise to their feet, and now we're going to get a little bit of an exchange of submissions, collar and elbow tie-up, but Eddie Guerrero can't help himself. He pokes Shawn Michaels in the eye. He looks at the crowd and smiles and says, I can't help it. Of course, he has to have a little bit of dirty tactics. I mean, this guy slapped me. I'll poke him in the eye. This obviously upsets Shawn Michaels. He pushes Eddie Guerrero off, goes off to the corner, delivers some severe chops to Eddie, and then in the corner, he's delivering chops, but at one point, Eddie ducks the chop, and Shawn goes for it, spins around, and Eddie catches him with a backbreaker. And Eddie realizes now that's the key. That's the key. I have to go after the back. Although it's not the most babyface approach, they are both consumed with being the very best. So we see Eddie Guerrero continuing to target the back of Shawn Michaels. And keep in mind, Shawn Michaels had missed 4 years of his career due to that back injury sustained in '98. That he wouldn't come back until 2002. People thought his career was over because of that back injury, but Eddie Guerrero goes after it, whether it is with knees, whether it's a backbreaker, the submission maneuver, El Lasso from El Paso. He continues to go after the back of Shawn Michaels. So as I said, he's delivering the El Lasso from El Paso. Shawn Michaels reaches the ropes, and we have to have a rope break. Eddie Guerrero argues with the referee, saying, come on, count the submission. Turns around, Shawn catches him with a surprise super kick, and now that Eddie's laid out, Shawn Michaels goes to the corner, starts tuning up the band. He wants to lay out Eddie once and for all, and as he goes for the sweet chin music, because of his back, he doesn't really get all of it. He kind of nicks him maybe on the shoulder a little bit, so Eddie Guerrero is able to kick out of that super kick. Eddie out on the floor, or out on the mat I should say. Shawn realizes, okay, I gotta go for it. He goes up top, goes to deliver that patented elbow drop from the top rope, but Eddie Guerrero, playing possum, moves out of the way, and Shawn Michaels just lays flat on the mat because he misses Eddie Guerrero. He's laying on his stomach though, and Eddie sees this as the opportunity. He goes up to the top rope and delivers a devastating frog splash to the back of Shawn Michaels. He goes up again for another frog splash onto the back of Shawn Michaels. 1, 2, 3. Eddie Guerrero beats Shawn at WrestleMania, retaining the World Heavyweight Championship and having bragging rights over one of the all-time greatest professional wrestlers. After the match, Shawn Michaels laid out on the ground, Eddie Guerrero celebrating in the ring, and realizes, Shawn is out on the ground, and he goes over to lift Shawn. He helps him to his feet, and Shawn just looks at him, and Eddie says, I just needed to know. I just needed to know. Very similar to how Shawn had said against Hogan the summer prior. They shake hands. Shawn acknowledges Eddie, bows out of the ring, gives Guerrero his moment, and he celebrates with the crowd. This huge victory for Eddie, really serving as, I think, the peak and like almost the climax of this new Eddie Guerrero, who's just super over with the crowd as a babyface, but still maintaining the core beliefs of the Eddie Guerrero that we know. So on the very next episode of SmackDown, Eddie Guerrero comes out celebrating with the crowd, similar to how it was when he won the championship back in 2004 after No Way Out, celebrating with the crowd and saying that this was one of the greatest matches of his career. He is so proud of what he was able to accomplish. He thanks the crowd for their support and their belief in him, and just learning to re-trust Eddie Guerrero. And he looks forward to whoever is next in line for this world title, as he will continue to defend it so long as he is physically able to. And in doing so, Mr. Kennedy comes out, a brash, cocky, new heel, new face here in the story. And Mr. Kennedy comes out and says that, hey, since the Survivor Series, laying him out with that steel chair, Mr. Kennedy believes I'm the reason for this new Eddie Guerrero. I was able to knock some sense into you when I hit you with that steel chair all the way back in November. If anybody should be in line for a world championship, it should be Mr. Kennedy. After that, Rey Mysterio comes out and says that year-long feud that they had between one another really started it off against Eddie Guerrero and Rey Mysterio. And he says that there's nobody out there that knows him better than he does. So he thinks that he should also be in contention for a world title matchup. But upon saying that, Chris Benoit's music hits. He comes out. He says no one has traveled up the road more than him alongside Eddie Guerrero, and that he believes that he knows Eddie so well that he's going to be the one to defeat Eddie for that championship. But of course, we get one more interruption, and it's JBL. And JBL comes out having won the United States Championship from Benoit at WrestleMania 22. And he says, I've already beaten Benoit for the US title. I've already beaten Eddie Guerrero for the WWE title. And I'll do it again. That he is next in line for that WWE World Championship. We have a Fatal 4-Way matchup the next week on SmackDown. It's JBL versus Mr. Kennedy versus Rey Mysterio versus Chris Benoit. And we have JBL go over getting a matchup here at Judgment Day against Eddie Guerrero for the WWE World Heavyweight Championship. A rematch from 2 years prior, as they had their classic Judgment Day matchup that saw Eddie Guerrero covered in blood. I mean, this guy was gushing like it was a scene from Carrie. We have that matchup, and Eddie Guerrero and JBL have had their history. They spent the majority of the summer of 2004 competing for that WWE title, and now we're going to have it like a blow-off. It's the last man standing. Eddie wants to be done with JBL, and so we have a last man standing matchup between the two. We see like a very aggressive Eddie Guerrero, because again, this was an Eddie from a couple of years ago, so tapping into that feud with JBL really brings it out of Eddie. JBL continues to push Eddie, pushing his buttons, pushing him emotionally, pushing him mentally, until Eddie finally snaps, and he repays JBL for that chair shot back in 2004. He delivers a chair shot to John Bradshaw Layfield. He's gushing with blood, and to finally put him out of his misery, he lays out a table, puts JBL on it, and delivers a huge frog splash. We don't really get to see Eddie deliver a frog splash through a table, but he does so here, gets the victory over JBL because he could not answer the count of 10. And essentially, we continue this Eddie Guerrero appreciation tour heading into ECW One Night Stand. We do have that, that tribute show of ECW versus WWE that they had originally during the build-up of One Night Stand 06. And this is where Eddie Guerrero and Benoit come face to face again. During the weeks leading up to it, Benoit is talking with Eddie. They're becoming more friends again. It had been a while since they've been together because Benoit was on Raw for a while. Then on SmackDown, he was stuck in the mid-card. But he talks to Eddie and says how proud he is of the man that he's become. He's becoming an honorable champion, a great champion. But he says at last year's one night stand, you and I faced off against each other, and I got the victory. And I'm telling you right now, pretty sure I could do it again. And Eddie Guerrero says if you wanted a match, all you had to do was ask. So at one night stand, it's going to be Eddie versus Benoit for the world title. One night stand. Again, a rematch of the original pay-per-view in 05 and now in 06. This matchup to me is very just straightforward. There's not really a need for a blood feud or any kind of shenanigans in the lead up. Just a straight up contest between two of the best technical wrestlers on the planet. Eddie and Ben will have a masterclass, as I would expect them to, but Eddie Guerrero outsmarts Benoit again, as he's been doing with all his other opponents, and gets the victory, retains his championship at One Night Stand. Following One Night Stand, it's announced through vignettes that the Animal, Dave Batista, is making his return to SmackDown, and finally, upon returning, he is welcomed with open arms by his good friend, world champion Eddie Guerrero. And Batista tells Eddie how proud he is. You've done it in an honorable way. You've been a great world champion. I can't believe what you've been able to do in my absence. You've really proven to not only me, but to yourself how great of a champion that you have become. And he tells Eddie Guerrero how proud he is, but he tells him, I'm also here to collect. Months ago, you said that upon my return, we would have a match for this world championship. And Eddie Guerrero says, you got it, Dave. I'm a man of my word. I did promise you that. I promised the people that. So at the Great American Bash, one-on-one for the world championship, it'll be Eddie Guerrero versus Dave Batista. And in the build-up towards this matchup, Batista kind of exhibits a little bit of heelish tendencies. Not a full heel turn, but just a little heelish tendencies to kind of throw off Eddie Guerrero, almost using the whole new Batista to his advantage. And Eddie Guerrero sees this as a test. He's not dumb. He's learned over the course of these last few months what it is to be a proper world champion. And he learns that this is all a part of the ploy, all a part of the plan for Batista. So they get to Great American Bash, and Eddie and Batista have a solid matchup, as you would expect between these two. And there is a moment here, of course, with a ref bump, inadvertent ref bump, but out of sure, tendencies and habits, Eddie slides out of the ring, gets the championship belt, and he's in the ring with the belt. He's about to lay out Batista, and he's thinking to himself, what am I doing? I've been doing this for how long now? Being the world champion, and I haven't done this. Harkening back all the way to the Survivor Series qualifying matchup. That was the last time we saw Eddie Guerrero have the chair, do the whole chair spot and flip it to the opponent and causing the referee to believe that he used it. But he sees the world champion, and as the referee begins to, rise, he throws the championship away. Says, I want to do this the right way. And the referee's still trying to get up. Eddie goes over to the referee, lifts him up, says, come on, let's go. Let's get it going with the matchup. Turns around and eats a nasty spear from Batista, and shocked as it all. The referee even looks at Batista like, damn, that was a big spear. Batista picks up Eddie Guerrero, lifts him for a Batista bomb, lays him out in the ring, and just because out of love and respect for Eddie, he realizes one's not going to do. Picks up Eddie, one more Batista bomb, lays him out. 1, 2, 3. Batista beats Eddie Guerrero for the world championship that he never lost. And it's this huge, just therapeutic ending, I think, for the Batista and Eddie Guerrero story that got started all the way back in the fall of 05. Eddie gets a final world championship. He got to have great matches with the likes of Randy Orton, Shawn Michaels, JBL, Chris Benoit. I just feel like we really get to wrap up all the storylines that had been told over the course of these last couple years for Eddie Guerrero. He's in the ring with Batista, again, a smile on his face because he now realizes the pressure is off of him. You kind of see Eddie Guerrero seems so relieved that he no longer has to be the world champion, carrying the brand. He now can just go back to having fun, having great matches. He looks at Dave, and he gives him this look like, you got me. You got me, Dave. He raises Batista's hand as the world champion. Batista smiles, and he throws his hand down. He lifts Eddie Guerrero's hand in response, saying, hey, I may be the world champion now, but give it up for the guy that was defending this brand for the better part of this last year. And Eddie Guerrero has his flowers. I will say that during this event, we pushed back the King of the Ring tournament to July rather than May, and Booker T wins the King of the Ring tournament, earning him a world championship matchup at SummerSlam. So again, it falls right back into place where it's SummerSlam 06, Batista versus Booker T for the world title. Eddie Guerrero goes off into the sunset, does whatever storylines we have in store for him next. But this is where I'll be stopping it, as it's the end of his world title reign and seemingly the end of like his main event run. I would suspect that following this, Eddie Guerrero would be comfortable in the mid card slash upper mid card, still feuding for the world title, but never necessarily winning the world championship. And I think it's, again, a proper send off for all the feuds, whether it was Ray, Batista, everything that Eddie had been a part of that last year and a half in the WWE. But hey, let me know what you guys thought about today's video, the fantasy booking of Eddie Guerrero's 2006. If you enjoyed the video and the story that was told, make sure you give the video a like, comment down below what maybe you would have changed in the booking, or maybe what was your favorite part of the video, and make sure you subscribe to the channel to stay up to date with all things professional wrestling. And of course, my name's Jose Ramos Jr. Thanking you for hanging out with us in today's video, and I'll be seeing you all in the next one.